The dust of Dry Gulch settled on Clara's worn boots as she stepped off the stagecoach, clutching her tattered valise. She wore a heavy veil to hide the burned scars that twisted her cheek and jaw like melted candle wax. A friendly storekeeper pointed toward the clanging smithy and whispered that Eli was the kindest soul in town. Her heart hammered with dread as she approached the forge, fearing he would recoil from her disfigured face. Eli stood tall at the anvil, his eyes wrapped in a faded bandana, his strong hands shaping hot iron. He turned at her footsteps, his face breaking into a welcoming smile that seemed to see right through her. "You must be Clara," he said warmly, his voice a deep melody that melted her fear into cautious hope. She stammered a greeting, grateful he could not see the flames of shame burning beneath her heavy lace veil. He offered his soot-streaked palm, and she placed her trembling fingers into his remarkably steady and gentle grip. His thumb traced her knuckles as if reading her story, and he declared her hands were kind and brave. That evening they sat on his porch, and he confessed that he lost his sight 3 years ago in an explosion. He missed the colors of sunset, but discovered that sound and touch could paint a far truer picture anyway. She whispered about the house fire that took her parents and left her with scars she believed made her hideous. Eli reached up slowly, asking permission to touch her face and memorize the landscape of her soul to her fingertips. She guided his calloused hand to her cheek, bracing for disgust, but his expression softened into reverent, pure tenderness. He traced the ridges gently and said, "Your skin feels like the bark of a strong oak that weathered storms. These are not flaws," he continued. "They are the geography of a survivor, and that is breathtakingly beautiful." Clara. Tears splashed onto his wrist as no one had ever offered her such grace or called her disfigurement a treasure. They married beneath the cottonwood tree the following Sunday, the parson declaring that love sees beyond mere flesh. She became his eyes in town, describing sunsets with poetic detail while he transformed raw metal into functional art pieces. He taught her the rhythm of the bellows and the precise angle to strike iron so sparks danced like prayers. Her arms grew strong, pumping the forge, and her laughter returned, ringing through the smithy like a glorious resurrection. One afternoon, a wealthy rancher named Harlan barged in, demanding Eli shoe his horse with sneering, aggressive impatience. Clara stepped forward to assist, but Harlan caught a glimpse under her veil and recoiled with a cruel laugh. "What kind of monster hides in this shop?" He spat, his words lashing her heart like a leather bullwhip. He moved with lightning precision, placing his body between Clara and the brute with unshakable protective fury ignited. "You will apologize to my wife, or I will fashion a bit that reminds your horse to throw you daily." Harlan scoffed but retreated under the unseeing gaze that seemed to pierce his soul with formidable, righteous, quiet strength. That night, Clara wept in Eli's arms, mourning the cruelty of a world that valued smooth skin over kindness. He held her close and whispered scriptures about God looking at the heart until her sobs turned to peace. He fashioned a delicate iron rose for her, its petals hammered thin, declaring that true beauty never fades. She began removing her veil inside their home first, then on the porch at sunrise when only birds watched. By autumn, she walked to the mercantile with her scars bare, Eli's arm linked confidently through hers each step. The townsfolk slowly stopped staring and started greeting her with nods of respect, inspired by the blacksmith's unwavering devotion. Harlan, however, nursed his bruised pride and schemed to ruin Eli's business by spreading lies about faulty horseshoes. One night, he paid a drifter to set fire to the smithy while the couple slept in their cottage. Clara awoke to the orange glow and screamed, dragging Eli from bed as smoke thickened and timber groaned. Eli refused to flee without his father's anvil, the only heirloom he possessed, so Clara charged into the inferno. She located the heavy anvil, adrenaline surging, and rolled it inch by inch through the searing, unbearable black smoke. Her veil caught fire, and she threw it aside, emerging from the blaze with singed hair and smudged, triumphant face. Eli heard her coughing and pulled her into his arms, his hands checking her for injuries with frantic love. The anvil survived, and Clara's heroism became the talk of the town, transforming her from victim into local legend. Island's scheme was exposed when the drunk drifter bragged, and the sheriff arrested Harlan before sundown that very day. With the community's help, the smithy was rebuilt stronger, its new sign reading "Heartfelt Iron, Forged by Faith." Clara began painting landscapes on the shop's wooden shutters, bright colors she described to Eli with vivid wonder daily. He would run his fingers over the dried brushstrokes and declare that he could feel the sunset's warm glory. They took in an orphan boy named Toby, who had a limp and a deep fear of being unwanted forever. Clara taught Toby to read from the Psalms, while Eli taught him to shape metal with patient, sturdy hands. The boy blossomed, calling them Ma and Pa, and the smithy echoed with the music of a real family. Clara realized her scars no longer defined her. They were merely the opening chapter of a magnificent redemption story. Eli never regretted his lost sight because, he explained, it forced him to listen to her spirit's quiet song. One winter, a traveling photographer set up a tent, and Clara decided to sit for a portrait with Eli. She wore no veil, her scars catching the light like silver streams, and her smile was radiant and unashamed. Eli held her hand, his thumb resting on her wedding ring, and the camera captured a love utterly holy. The photograph hung in the smithy, a testament that imperfection seen through love becomes the definition of genuine perfection. Years later, Toby grew into a fine blacksmith and a gentleman who valued character above any superficial appearance. Clara and Eli aged gracefully, their hair turning silver, but their morning ritual of touching foreheads never once changed. Eli often marveled that he fell in love with a voice and a heartbeat, yet gained a woman of steel. Ah, did he steal? She would reply that he gave her a mirror that reflected only the soul and that healed everything broken inside. They hosted Sunday dinners for widows and outcasts, serving stew and hope on the same long wooden rustic table. Clara would tell her story to the newest guest, pointing at her scars and calling them her liberation map finally. Eli would add that darkness taught him to recognize true light, and he found it blazing in Clara's spirit. When a fever swept the valley, both tirelessly nursed the sick, Clara's veilless face becoming a symbol of comfort. Children stopped fearing her scars and instead brought her wildflowers, calling her the pretty lady with the silver rivers. Eli's heart swelled with pride, and he composed a love poem and had Toby carve it onto a leather belt. It read, "My eyes are closed so my heart can behold the masterpiece that God crafted in my wife." On their 20th anniversary, the whole town gifted them a stained glass window depicting a phoenix rising from flames. Clara wept as the colored light fell on her face, and Eli felt the warmth and declared it heavenly. They never amassed wealth, but their fortune was measured in the gratitude of those they lifted from despair. One evening, seated on the porch swing, Eli turned to her and said he could still feel her 20-year-old blush. She laughed and tucked a rose behind his ear, the scent mingling with the forged smoke on his shirt. Toby married a kind schoolteacher who read aloud to Eli from adventure novels, and Clara painted their wedding portrait. Grandchildren arrived, fearless toddlers who traced Clara's scars with sticky fingers and called them her special butterfly wings. Eli told the little ones that Grammy Clara was a warrior angel who rescued an anvil and a blind man. The story of their love became the local legend travelers sought out, inspiring ballads sung in prairie campfires. A young woman with a port wine stain journeyed hundreds of miles to meet the blacksmith's wife and find courage. Clara embraced her, whispering, "Your face is a sonnet, and the right heart will read it aloud with joy." Eli crafted a silver locket for the visitor, engraving it with the words, "Fearfully and wonderfully made," in tiny script. The locket became a talisman for dozens more, and the blacksmith's shop turned into a sanctuary for wounded souls. Years accumulated like gentle snowfall, and Clara's hands grew too arthritic to paint, so she dictated her memoirs instead. Eli would sit beside her, polishing a horseshoe, listening to her voice shape sentences that will outlive their mortal bodies. When Toby asked how they sustained such deep love, Eli simply said, "We chose grace every single sunrise together." Clara added, "He taught me that beauty is not a condition of the skin, but a condition of belovedness." In the final chapter of their lives, they shared a bed near the window where morning light warmed their faces. Eli passed first, his hand resting on her cheek, a peaceful smile suggesting he finally saw her face unveiled. She closed his sightless eyes and whispered, "Thank you for teaching a scarred woman that she was a masterpiece." Her own health faded gently, and she joined him beneath the cottonwood, the very tree where they had wed. The stained glass window from their anniversary was placed in the church, reminding all that redemption glows through brokenness. Toby carried on their legacy, forging iron crosses for graves and telling the story of true sight with every commission. The town renamed the lane Beauty's Forge Way, a constant reminder that love refines us hotter than any fire. Decades later, couples still visit the smithy, now a small museum, to touch the anvil and read Eli's poems. Clara's portrait hangs without apology, her scars shining, her eyes declaring that she was seen and she was cherished. The blind blacksmith and his scarred bride proved that the deepest vision requires no eyes and infinite brave trust. And in the quiet of Dry Gulch, the wind still carries the sound of a hammer shaping iron into love.